Welcome back to Indyfest 2021. I'm Jon Ralston, the editor of the Nevada Independent, here with the managing editor, Elizabeth Thompson. Before we go into the next focus group, Elizabeth and I are going to chat a little bit about what we just saw. But of course, this is live, Elizabeth, and things go wrong during live broadcasts. And of course, it was the ever-attentive Michelle Rindels who actually pointed out something that we should have caught in those slides during the poll reveals. Those numbers actually were the statewide numbers. The nonpartisan numbers are not that much different, by the way, than what the statewide numbers are on the handling of the pandemic. Governor, 59-32. I think it was a little bit higher among nonpartisans, 68-27 on the economic system not being fair, 55-43 on systemic racism, and so on. Overwhelming support for not overturning Roe versus Wade, and overwhelming support for mask mandates, not quite as much support, but substantial support for vaccine mandates. We apologize for that. Things get loaded incorrectly at times.
Just want to let everyone know, if you're on Twitter, both sets of slides are available there now. So they're marked either nonpartisan voters or statewide voters, so you can check Twitter. Kristen, our audience engagement manager, is also loading those slides right now onto Facebook. So depending on your social media platform of choice, you'll be able to refer back to both sets, and then you'll see what Jon just said, which is that actually the numbers were remarkably similar on all these questions between those two groups.
Stuff happens. We apologize for that error. I also want to remind everybody that all of this information, we are going to inundate you with numbers. You can have access to whatever you want. We'll be on the Nevada Independent site starting on Monday at the latest. That's the NevadaIndependent.com. All right, Elizabeth, what did you think of that conversation?
That was an amazing conversation.
Tell me why.
Well, first of all, I enjoyed the diversity of viewpoints between the selected members of the focus group. It was quite remarkable to see and hear with my own ears such distinct differences between different nonpartisan voters, which we alluded to that in the opening segment today, that it is pretty hard sometimes to pin down this voter group because people find themselves registering as a nonpartisan, as we heard, Jon, for all kinds of different reasons. Some of the answers, like, the gentleman who voted, Bill Clinton's his favorite, but also voted for Trump. I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing, I think, to some of us, right, who maybe tend to sometimes, lump certain politicians with certain types of beliefs and so forth. So just so fascinating to me to get inside the head of these nonpartisan voters.
What I thought was most interesting is what you just said, and I thought it was quite a robust conversation, and Matt Seltzer and his team did a great job of recruiting for all of these focus groups, and I'll thank everyone later at the end of Indyfest. But Elizabeth, what I thought was interesting is not just what you said, but the different age groups and how differently they're approaching these kinds of things. The older nonpartisans were pretty much at the end of their rope. They were disgusted. They may have been idealistic at one time, but they're a pox on both their houses. Maybe I'll vote Democrat, maybe I'll vote Republican. There are a couple, as you saw, that said neither on it. But what's interesting to me with Kadarius and Caesar is that Kadarius is clearly just learning about the world and about politics. Caesar, a little bit older, I think, and had some views, but they're not totally negative. They're confused. They may be, to use Mark Mellman's word, disengaged or disenchanted right now. But I saw some hope. And this is a person who's watched politics for 3.5 decades, and the thing that's really bothersome in covering politics is see how many people feel so negatively about it. I don't care what Republican, the Democrat, just to feel so negatively that you don't trust the system. At least I saw some hope among the younger folks up there.
That's very sweet that you found hope in our first focus group. Just a fascinating conversation, and I really love these types of conversations where things are civil, no one's calling anyone any names, no one's trying to make anyone feel stupid for what they just said, right? I think we really get down to what's honest and what's real at that point. So I'm thrilled with how that went, and hoping that the next three go equally as well.
I feel the same way. And what was really interesting to me, and I hope that this was a representative group, and I trust Matt enough to think that it was, but they all seem to have some knowledge that they do read, even though a lot of them said they don't read, they don't pay attention to the media. Comments about the media were somewhat disturbing, but I guess not that surprising to us. But there were very few factual misstatements. In other words, I didn't have to jump in and say that's absolutely not true. I let a few little minor things go, but they've read about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and they have strong feelings about that. Now, I think that may not be something that's big a factor a year from now. They will have forgotten about it, as most Americans will have something else. But they're paying attention, even though they say they're not paying attention. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was too. I want to actually talk about the conversation about the media for just a second. There was someone, I think it is Paula Francis. Hi, Paula. Paula put something in the chat room during the media conversation that I agree with, and it's one of the things I say all the time, which is the phrase, the media is too broad. You cannot lump in all news sources together. And I always say that when I'm speaking about news and credibility, to people, and we're having conversations about who do you trust and why, and who don't you trust and why. It's very easy to just say the media and think of either the media that you hate the most or love the most when you're talking about the media. But there are more than a dozen media outlets right here in Nevada, hundreds across the region, and thousands across the country. And so I think we do, especially in this time of disenchantment and disengagement, to use Mark Mellman's words, we need to be very careful when we're talking about these issues and get really specific. What do we mean? Who do we mean? Which outlets do we mean? And what facts are we challenging?
This is, excuse the pun, news to me. There is more than one media outlet in Nevada. I was not aware of this, Elizabeth. But seriously, we're going to wrap up this discussion. Elizabeth and I are going to talk a little bit about these focus groups after each one. But this is a real, I don't think people watching realize what a treat this is to be able to see this window into real people. In polling, you're asking, and it's all aggregated. These are like the people who were polled, and you're getting a window into their thinking. And to Andy Block's question earlier, to be able to dig down, and I don't even have to do much, which people who know me, that's difficult. But these people had a real conversation, and you can see, as you said, how, what they're thinking, and I thought it was an amazing conversation too. I hope everyone else did. We're going to have another one coming up in just a few minutes with another cohort of voters, the Latino voters, always pivotal in Nevada elections. We'll be back in a moment.